Good evening, folks. Welcome to Tea and Type. This episode, we are going to be talking about deepening your characters. I am MK England. I'm the author of the forthcoming YA sci-fi book, The Disasters, and Jamie is away this week, but with me tonight, I have my wonderful friend, Leigh. Tell us about yourself, Leigh.
Hello, I am Leigh Mar, and I know MK and Jamie through the Pitch Wars class of 2015. I am a YA contemporary slash light spec fic author, and I am represented by Alana Roth Parker. That is me.
Awesome. So you got to tell us one more thing about yourself tonight. What are you drinking today?
Oh, so today I have this cranberry apple tea that I got at Whole Foods. It's pretty good, but I have it in a nice Wonder Woman mug, which is the highlight of the experience for me. So
yes, A+ mug choice. I approve.
What about you?
Yeah, this week it's been a bad day for both of us, honestly. So cheers. Tonight it's wine. This is something that was given to us like recently. And the person was just like, here, this is, better than $2 Chuck, but it's, about the same price. It's like Winking Owl or something like that. I'm like, it was free, so I'll try it. It's not bad. It's not bad, actually. So, I mean, I would say it's $2 Chuck equivalent. So,
gotcha.
It's
pretty good.
It's fine. yeah, honestly. I'm just fine with it. Yeah. So this week, last week we talked about character interiority, and I think we started to get into some good meaty stuff and then immediately ran up against that time and went, God, this topic is so big, we can't possibly cover everything. So I think one of the things that we really wanted to talk about last week and didn't get time to get to is the fact that deep level of character interiority where you are so thoroughly inhabiting your character's point of view and letting that color the way they see and observe the world around them. You have to know them incredibly well, and not just know who they are and their backstory, but like why they are the way they are. So one of the reasons that I adore Leigh is that Leigh is sort of a character specialist, and she also recently read a book called Story Genius that has kind of turned everything upside down, and I immediately had to order it. So I guess, can you just give us a little bit of an introduction, like, what's the basic concept that's, driving that book?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole principle behind Story Genius is really that your character has to drive your plot. And how do you do that is by setting your character up in a way that's relatable to the reader, in a way that's going to be engaging on a very personal level, getting deeper than just the everyman, so-and-so has to save the world because it's going to expire and there's going to be an attack and their city is going to be wiped out. Like, yes, that is horrible, and yes, they don't want that to happen, but what do they really want? Like, they personally want from that experience? Do they want to save the world because some member of their family is going to be injured specifically, or their love interest is going to die, or whatever horrible thing it is that is personal to them that will bring you even further into that story to start caring about what is happening there. So the premise behind Story Genius in general is that there's a plot to the book, which is the action that happens, the things that happen, people go here, they do these things, but then there's also the story, which is kind of the experience for your main character. And the story is the telling of a main character who wants something. They have some sort of very strong desire, and at the same time, they have some sort of fundamental core belief that's going to be incompatible with that desire. So the story is watching how they are forced to confront that, and the journey as things kind of keep getting worse and worse and worse for them as they are forced to confront this core belief they have in order to either get or not get what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So, some of this on the surface is like a lot of the same stuff that we always hear is like, yes, of course, your character should always be driving your plot. But I think what's interesting here is this idea. So there's a couple of things, I guess, that the character, in terms of the story and the plot, like you should not just have like that physical obstacle that they're trying to overcome. They also need to have some kind of emotional obstacle that, you know, sort of leaves them vulnerable almost to everything else that's going on around them. So it's that, and it's also the sort of psychological approach that this book takes. And also there's some courses out there that, Leigh, I think you took that were taking a similar sort of angle. What were those about?
Yes, so I was actually lucky enough. I got to pilot a course that Jessica Bayless is now offering. Jessica is a psychologist by training, by her day job, and also a writer. So she has put together these courses kind of approaching writing from that point of view of a psychologist, and using that as a method to plot your book and have your character drive the action to really get connected into that really deep, authentic character. One of the things that I think keeps people reading, and that kind of magic element that keeps people engaged, is if they feel like they are reading a real person, if they feel like they're engaging with a real person. You know, if you're reading along and you start thinking to yourself like, oh, I know what they're going to do next. Like, I get it. I know this person. It's exciting. And it's also exciting when then they surprise you and they do something else. But it's surprising because you knew them and you knew what you thought they were going to do. And you know how big of a deal it is that they did not do that thing. Same with people in real life. You know which of your friends are going to love it if you throw them a surprise party and they'll be thrilled and have a great time. And you know which of your friends would hate it and not speak to you for a while if you tried to throw them a surprise party. And that's part of how you're close with people and understand them. So it's the same kind of premise with your characters, is knowing who they are and what they want and how they became that way, what caused them to be these people, what caused them to either love the idea of a surprise party or hate the idea of a surprise party and not want to do it. It's kind of how you can really kind of get to that level where your readers feel like they know the characters that well.
Yeah, I think there's a big temptation to sort of go with the character sheet. You know, these are the things I know about their character: the hair color, the eye color, a couple of key defining traits, or personality quirks, things like that. But I think where a lot of this really starts to come into play is in the backstory, and it's the stuff that you never see in the book. There are. I feel like the more I know about my character outside of what is directly relevant in the book, the more I actually write them authentically on the page.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff, even if it never makes it into the final book, it sort of affects the way my brain translates that character onto the page and how I gauge their reactions to different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And I've definitely found that when I feel like my characters are lacking, what I really need to do is go back into their backstory and think about, what happened to them 10 years ago. How is that affecting who they are as a person right now? And how does that directly interact with whatever major plot obstacle is going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how did they build these core beliefs, like the things that they believe about the world, the way that they see the world? Where did they come from? Because you can't really have a character that just thinks, if I work hard, everything's going to work out for no reason. They have to have seen that happen before. Maybe their parents exemplified that through hard work and success, or an older sibling, or a mentor, or it's just always been the message that's been put in front of them and they've never seen it not happen. So of course that's the thing they believe. But you may have another character who says, no matter how hard I work, it's just never going to work out. That's just a fact of life. It's what I believe. It's how I see the world. And they see it that way for their own reason. Maybe that's what has always happened with them. That's what's always happened with the people around them in their lives. And Jessica Bayless actually talked a lot about this in her course, which kind of centers around cognitive behavioral therapy, which is kind of the idea that your experiences kind of create your mindset, and then that is what affects everything that you do and feel and act. You have that built up in you of, this is how my world is. And then whenever something new happens to you, it's going to affect how you feel and then how you react to it. And that's what we see in books with our characters, is we see things happening to them, and then we see them we feel what they're feeling, understand what their feelings are, and we see them react to it to drive the plot forward. And so kind of jumping back again, the whole concept of story genius, as you were just saying about backstory and all the things that happen before you even get to the first page, things that aren't even in the book, story genius kind of spells it out of, there's that story, the internal story of your character kind of coming up against the struggle, and there's the plot of what actually happens. But your book starts in the middle of the story. Your book starts when your character has already kind of become a person. They've had these life experiences, they've built up these worldviews, they have, they're going about their life in the way that makes sense for them, it works for them. And your story starts when something's going to happen that's going to challenge them and kind of force them into an action there. It's going to force them to challenge this belief that they have in some way. Not necessarily a big overt, like, oh no, I realize I'm facing this challenge of my beliefs. It's likely going to be pretty subtle that maybe the reader doesn't even quite see in the beginning, but the author needs to know that that's what they're going to be coming up against as they engage with this plot and as the story kind of kicks off.
Mm-hmm. I think a more sort of overt, obvious example of this is a common characterization in romance novels that I've seen is, one of the protagonists, they, for whatever reason, they can't let people in. And that always stems from either, everybody I love eventually leaves me, or everyone I love, loving people leaves me vulnerable and people hurt me. And so that turns into, that wall that's there, and then they have to get past that to, of course, the goal of every romance novel is the happily ever after. So they have to be able to overcome that emotional barrier to be able to, reach that satisfying conclusion of the novel. Now, in a romance novel, that really is more plotty in a way. But or maybe it's just that story, that character arc is pushed a lot more to the forefront in a romance novel. It's a much more crucial part of how all of that works. And I know I've been screaming a lot about Warcross on here, but like, damn y'all, you really gotta go get you some Warcross. But this is another thing that I think that book really does very well, distractingly well. That book is I am an hour from the end and I cannot do anything else with my life. You're lucky I'm here right now instead of just listening to it, because I was listening to it right before we came on the air. Definitely recommend you check that out for what it does with emotional wounds and all of that stuff, and how that drives the way characters behave and how that drives the story.
And then along with that, because romance made me think of it, is not just driving the story, but then giving that kind of true moment of satisfaction for the reader when they see the character get there. When you see and when you genuinely understand and believe why this character is the way that they are, and their worldview makes sense to you, and then you see it change, is very satisfying for the reader when you get there. And I was actually glancing over at my bookshelf when you were talking and kind of thinking about what's on there. And I think actually one good example is with Angie Thomas's The Hate U Give. I know there's kind of other big central conflicts to it, but one of the things that was very satisfying for me as a reader was watching the main character Star. She starts with one thing that I, as a reader, thought she really wanted, which was to really feel like she belonged in both of her worlds. We see her hopping back and forth between her neighborhood and her family and her school world, where she's kind of two different people and not always fully herself in either of those worlds. So to set it up in that story genius way, it's, what is the thing she wants the most? I would say one of those things was to be herself in both of her worlds. What is her core belief? She believes she can't be. She just doesn't see it as a possibility. There's no way she can completely be herself. And as the book goes on, by the time you get to the end, you see those moments where she talks to, I think her name's Kenya, and kind of stands up for her feelings around their shared brother. And it's you keep saying he's your brother, but he's my brother too. I'm claiming my spot in this family. I belong in this world just as much as I belong in any other world. And with her friends at school, where she says, hey, what you're doing and saying is not cool, and I'm going to let you know I'm not cool with it, and kind of being able to stand up for herself there. Like, those moments are, I think I cried a lot reading that book.
I cried a lot in that book.
But I was surprised when I found myself getting just as choked up at those moments, because I'd been on the journey with her and kind of seen how this was a thing she never thought would be, and to watch the character kind of grow and develop and get to those satisfying moments where it's like, yes, you can do it. You feel that as the reader, and that's part of the magic that pulls you through.
Yeah, I really think that book is kind of a masterclass on characterization. Yes. Like, I put that book down and felt like I could go pick up my phone and call one of these characters, because they're real people that actually exist in this world.
Yes.
It truly like blew me away. So I guess let's end on kind of a practical note. So know our characters' backstories, and we need to dig into those emotional wounds that they have to figure out, what they need to overcome in the story. But how do you get there? How do you go from having a character concept that fits with the story as it is now to extrapolating back into a backstory? Or do you tend to start with backstory and then go forward?
Interesting. I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's ever necessarily like a clear logical path that I really sit down and do this. I don't know if it's in my processes, if it's I write some and then I kind of go back and think or whatnot. But after reading Story Genius this weekend, it does. The book itself kind of helps coach you through a process to get there, to kind of approach from that lens of plotting and saying, what do I need to know about the character to create a plot here? And it has some great tools and tricks in there to, look at what the problem is and what that might mean. And one of the things that they encourage, and that I think writers kind of do naturally too, is just to keep asking why, all the way down to the last level that you possibly can. If you're saying, well, my character is afraid of commitment because, they had a really bad breakup in the past. That's not enough. That's not enough of a reason. It's not enough of a backstory. You need to get all the way down to the why. Like, what is it that's making them afraid? What was it about that breakup specifically, or that relationship specifically, or was it a pattern, or was it something they saw elsewhere? And really, really get down to the finite, heart of an issue that it may be reinforced by a lot of things, or it may be a generalization, but what it is for that character that makes them the way that they are.
Yeah, I think in that specific scenario, it's like, it's easy to say like, okay, they're afraid of commitment because of this breakup, but you have to go to the level of afraid of commitment. What was it about that breakup that hurts so badly? What is the belief that is underneath that? Is the fear of commitment, like, this person, the next person is just going to leave me? Or is it, I was never deserving of that first person anyway, so why put myself into this? Like, there's another belief that character has about themselves.
Yeah.
That surface level fear of commitment.
Exactly.
Definitely think I worded this question because this is the way I tend to approach things. I tend to be like, this is who my character is and this is my plot. Go, go, go. Oh, why am I stalling out so hard? Because I don't know enough about this character. Okay, now let's extrapolate back. And I know not everybody works that way, but I think when I get around to reading Story Genius, that's really going to help me, because I do tend to kind of look at my plot and look at the character that I currently have and say, like, here is a thing that they are good at. Here is, a way that I can potentially interfere with or make that thing, for them. I put in their backstory to create an obstacle for them. I definitely start with like the existing plot.
And then, but I think then you can kind of take it deeper to that level that's going to create that internal conflict where it's, they've got these skills that came from somewhere and they've got these obstacles that will be hard for them for some reason, but they will also have something that they really, really want that may be tied to those skills for a reason, and they will have something that they believe that's probably tied to all of this for a reason. So if you kind of keep drilling down that path, once you have, enough of a surface level image of this character who does something cool and lives somewhere cool and is going to be fun to write and has like a cool personality, to look at what you know and start drilling down to what you need to know, which is, you know, what do they want? Why do they want it? And what do they believe about it? What's going to make that a challenge for them to confront? And then you kind of just have to keep going layer after layer of, you know, not stopping at that. Well, they're afraid of commitment, but getting to the why. Why are they afraid of commitment? What happened before that? What made that breakup so devastating? You know, what was said or done, or what kind of piled on top of each other to make this person who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that all makes sense to me. So let's just do a resource recap really quick. The book that we've been talking about is Story Genius by Lisa Cron, right?
Yes,
I believe is her
name.
It
looks like this, but with less sticky notes, probably.
No, the sticky notes are perfect. I love it. And Leigh, you also have a worksheet that you use when you're planning out characters, right?
I do. So this is a worksheet I actually made a year or two ago, and I would probably make a few adjustments to it now, but there's still some things I like about it that I gave MK the link to download it. But some of what it does drill down to is thinking about how your character behaves. One of my favorite parts of it is just thinking about what makes characters react the way they do, because everyone's going to react to a situation differently. So if you have a few characters in a room and someone says, you know, here's an idea, let's go for a drive today, they will all have a different reaction to that. And it's interesting to kind of always be able to set your characters up to understand how they likely will react. So it has kind of fields that say, when this character feels, what makes this character feel happy and how do they show it? What makes this character feel sad and how do they show it? Because people will show their happiness or their sadness in different loud or quiet or, you know, big or small ways. And that's what makes people people.
Yeah. That sounds good. And I did put the link to that down in the show notes, as well as a link to Jessica Bayless's class and Story Genius on Goodreads. So go forth and peruse all of the wonderful resources. I know I will be, because I am currently in like character hell right now with my NaNoWriMo novel. So do you have a thing to recommend this week? Anything?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Nice.
I sat down and read this within a day, and it's just so much great information that I was soaking in. And then I went back and started looking at it through the lens of the project I'm working on. And I know I'm going to do that multiple additional times while I'm working on this project. So that is my recommendation, is Story Genius by Lisa Cron.
Awesome. And I think this week I am going to recommend the audiobook of Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. He reads the audiobook himself, which is always fun when, you know, an author can read their own book and do it well. And it's a verse novel, and it's a very short verse novel, actually. So the audiobook was like an hour and 45 minutes, maybe. And that's including an interview with the author at the end. Blew me away. I was just, it blew by so fast, but it really like it turned my world upside down. I can't even say anything about it because I'll just spoil everything because it's so short. Just do yourself a favor. Like, it'll take you 0 time to just go read it or go listen to the audiobook. You will thank me. Hit me up on Twitter later when your life has been changed. So NaNoWriMo updates. I mean, I think we're both kind of, you know, done with NaNoWriMo. Actually, yeah, you hit 50K. I just hit 50K yesterday.
Yeah, got a nice
which was
pile of words to revisit now and see where the story
words. It needs a lot of work. So now the fun starts, going back and going, what the hell did I just write? And trying to figure out how to turn your pile of words into a book-shaped thing.
Yes.
So we'll definitely talk about that some more in future episodes, what to do with your horrific first Frankendrafts. So that's coming up. We are going to go do some focus sprints on the Tea and Type hashtag now until 10 p.m. Eastern, so y'all are welcome to come join us over there if you want to get some stuff done tonight. Even though I've met the NaNoWriMo word count goal, I'm still plugging away, you know, trying to get some more done.
Yeah.
And next week, Jamie will be back. I will be gone because, as you can tell by the empty bookshelf behind me, moving day is very, very close. So I probably will not have internet at my new place yet by next week. So Jamie has a newly well, I don't know. I don't know if any of this is supposed to be a surprise. So anyway, Jamie's gonna have a special guest next week. So don't forget to click subscribe and join her next Monday, December the 4th, for another episode of Tea and Type. And this has been Tea and Type. So let's head over to Twitter and make some words together.
Bye.